Welcome, friends in Africa and in other parts of the world. We are so delighted to welcome you to this inaugural webinar, which is part of the commemoration of AfrEA's anniversary. And you will hear a lot about what AfrEA is all about. So thank you so much for signing up. As we speak now, we have close to 100 participants, and I know the numbers are going to grow. Thank you so much for giving us this time. Our webinar today is themed around 25 years of organizing for evaluation in Africa by AfrEA, achievements, challenges, and lessons. And we will do this for 90 minutes. And I'll tell you the modality as we go along. We are so honored that we have the best of speakers, people of international caliber who are going to speak to us. And they have lived the experience because they have been presidents of the African Evaluation Association. I will start off by introducing one by one as they speak. But before we go deep down, I would like to ask the president of the African Evaluation Association, Dr. Mitch, to introduce himself, because you need to know him. He's our leader today. You need to know him and also to tell us why we are here. Then we'll proceed. Over to you, Dr. Mitch.
Thank you, Dr. Rossetti, for the word. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Greetings to all. It's a great honor and privilege for me to welcome you to our first webinar of the year. We are delighted to have you join us this afternoon. As you may know, the African Evaluation Association, AfrEA, is celebrating 25 year of excellence in organizing and advancing evaluation across the continent. As we embark on the preparation to commemorate this significant milestone, we believe it's essential to engage with you, our valuable member, through regular webinar and exchange. Today's webinar's theme is 25 years of organizing for evaluation in Africa by AfrEA, Achievement, Challenge, and Lesson Learned, mark the beginning of the series of insightful discussion. This session will focus on key evaluation issue and bring together experts from AfrEA and beyond, forcing knowledge sharing and collaboration. The wisdom of the African proverb which say, if you leave the world better than you found it, you have truly lived, perfectly capture the essence of why we gather here today. We celebrate 25th year of AfrEA existence, built on the hard work and enduring legacy of the predecessor, past president, dedicated member, and everyone who has contributed to this journey. Your commitment and effort, even if it's not always visible, has been instrumental in shaping AfrEA into what it is today. For this, we extend our heartfelt gratitude. Let's continue working together for the betterment of AfrEA and its mission to promote evaluation excellence in Africa. Participation of the memorial celebration of the 25th anniversary are underway, and the Secretariat will share with you detailed plans, and also you can make your calendar and join us for this momentous celebration that will have happened in Addis Ababa in the month of June. I would also like to extend my best wish to our estimated panelists, Dr. Zenda, Dr. Etta, Serge Eric, and the moderator, Dr. Rossetti, all past presidents of AfrEA. May today's celebration be insightful and fruitful. Without further ado, I thank you for your attention, and I officially declare the maiden edition of AfrEA Evaluation Excellence Exchange open. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mitch, for those words. And of course, I want to wish all of you a happy new year. And how best would we start this year if we did not say something about evaluation? So Rosette Nabumba Nayenga is my name, a past president of African Evaluation Association. And it's my honor to start off introducing the past speaker. We have three of them. And I will introduce one, because if I do it in one mass, we won't understand. So our first speaker is Professor Zenda Ofir. She specializes in evaluation, systems change and transformation, a South African citizen with a PhD in ecological chemistry. She moved in 2000 from a senior academic position to focus on evaluation in development, research, and other sectors. She has worked in 40 countries. She has advised many international organizations. I can't mention all of them: UNDP, Gavi, IFAD, Clear AA, name it, BRICS, New Development Bank. That's where she has been. Zenda has held many leadership positions as AfrEA President in the IOC, IDEAS, and the CV is quite extensive. I will only pick some of the things. She has been a visiting professor at Hiroshima University in Japan. She holds so many positions. I could go on, and she believes in big picture issues. Professor Zenda, over to you. And members, as you listen, please jot down your issues in the question and answer. We'll try to answer them as we go along. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you so much, Rossetti. And I just want to make sure that I am screen sharing and that you can see what I have here properly. Let me just organize myself in that way. Oh, just a moment. Something jumped on my screen and covered what I should be doing. Can you see well and hear me well?
Yes.
So thank you for that introduction, Rossetti. And just to say, I'm not a professor anymore, so I feel guilty for being mentioned on that title. That was over a period of 8 years I had that, but not anymore. I would like to use this 20 minutes that I will have as a time of celebration. I was tasked to celebrate AfrEA's achievements, to highlight them, and we have much to celebrate. I will just skim across the surface, and I'm very sure that my two colleagues are going to highlight much more and perhaps even correct me where my memory and my own experience fall short. But I'm a child of AfrEA, actually, because in 1999, long ago, I was holding a position at the University of Pretoria as Director of Research, which means I was in a senior position. And my Vice-Chancellor asked me whether I would like to represent the university at an event in Nairobi. And it turned out to be the inaugural conference of AfrEA, where I heard, I met many wonderful people, and I heard Michael Quinn-Patton speak every day for half day. And what was said so enamored me that a few months later, I resigned from my position and entered the field of evaluation. So AfrEA was very integral to my own journey. And I believe many of us can tell a similar story. So I'm going to give a quick overview of what are some of the achievements that we must celebrate today, but also learn from and improve on as we move forward. So you probably all know that Mahesh Patel, who at the time worked for the regional office of UNICEF, was the first, not only a first AfrEA president, but we owe to him that AfrEA exists. I got to know him in 2002, and I could see all the energy that was behind his establishment and advancement of AfrEA at that time. The conference that I attended, where I was converted to evaluation and organized by Mahesh, had 350 participants from 35 countries, 80 papers, and then the workshops I mentioned. And it was already something that was, I think, difficult to get together, but it was already sowing the seeds of what AfrEA was going to become. I want to remind you of the world into which AfrEA was born. At that time, only 25 years ago, the profession of evaluation was really not something that people in Africa did. We didn't really practice it very much. There were some consultants. We were usually contracted on a secondary level after the leadership of some other country outside the continent would perhaps ask us to join a team. But it was not seen as something that professionals or people with a professional background would like to do. And that was the case all over the global south. And so we entered a space where aid was really the instrument through which evaluation was done. And Africa was recipients rather than developers or sharers of expertise in the space. So I remember I was asked in 2004 to be on the editorial board of the Encyclopedia for Evaluation, also because I was at the time AfrEA President. And I noticed that there were no frameworks, no theories, no practices from Africans in that whole encyclopedia of 400 or 500 pages. There was not one African. And that really became then one of the reasons why I felt that it was crucial for us to advance through instruments like AfrEA. I also made a slide here of all the presidents, not because they're the only people. There are so many that contribute to what AfrEA is and has become. But leadership does matter. And what I appreciated from this picture, from this slide, is can you see all the flavors and colors and fragrances of Africa here? The diversity that we have here is great, and also the perfect gender balance, right? So that in itself is already an achievement, and that happened not by design. There are some parts of Africa that can still do with a face here, so who knows what the future may hold in that regard. But I think we can celebrate our diversity and the fact that we have these people who commit a lot of time in a year when they lead as presidents to make AfrEA work as it can and should. The first achievement I want to highlight is that we created as an organization, when we say we, I mean all of us around this virtual table who associate with AfrEA. We created a safe and inspiring space for us all to connect, to share, and to build relationships, right? And that is probably our biggest achievement. We glibly talk about conferences, but it provided us with safe spaces where we felt we could raise our voice easily. And you can see there the list of 11 conferences held right up till today. And again, the diversity across Africa was by design, but also because people in those countries offered to host and was selected after a process to host such events. And they all have their unique perspectives, their unique designs, their unique focuses. And to me, it was interesting to look at the conference themes and just let your eye go through the conference themes and you will see there, for me, we can interpret it as we wish, but for me, it's interesting to see that in the beginning, the themes are about capacities and sort of getting to know things in the world of development and the role of evaluation in it. Impact evaluation, which was a big topic in the late 2000s. And then I think in the last number, we start to focus far more on issues that are of very significant importance in Africa, specifically from our perspective. So we go with the flow of international affairs much more and how they impact on Africa. So there is an evolution in how we select our themes and what we focus on. So, of course, I have to talk about the third AfrEA conference when I was president, because that's one I remember so well. We were 61 countries who got together in Cape Town, and 47 African countries, right? It was nearly the whole continent had representatives. We had 10 pre-conference workshops with 250 participants and 21 funding and just partnerships who gave in-kind support, right? But what is significant about this conference, why I wanted to highlight it was the first one that was held together with a government, right? And so the Public Service Commission was an instrument of government. It had oversight over government. And I chose these pictures specifically to highlight that we had a minister of with us. You will see her here in the light colored dress in the center. Dr. Fraser Moleketi. She spent all 3 days with us of the conference. We had Commissioner Diseko of the Public Service Commission in the yellow. We had on the right the Premier of the Cape Province who spent time with us the whole day. And here, if you look at the picture of the plenary, one of the plenaries, the person second from the left at the bottom, the lady, was a minister from Tanzania who participated in Mary Nagu from Tanzania. All these high-level people spent days with us, spoke to everybody, and made it exceptionally useful, together with Professor Sangweni, who's the tall gentleman in the middle, where we have the Public Service Commission banner. He was the head of the Public Service Commission and completely committed. So the start of the first 3 conferences, I think, provided a solid base for AfrEA to move forward with Mahesh's vision for the first 3 years, very much helping to carry us all and support us all. So, of course, every conference has its own contribution. I just highlighted the parliamentarians event that was pulled together with the African Development Bank in Yaoundé at the 7th conference. And by the 9th conference, we had 650 participants, again, from over 60 countries. And I think later on it grew even more. We had, at some stage, I think, 800 participants. So the numbers grew, the interest grew, and the maturity grew. The second highlight is we nurtured and we also grew with our extended family of WOPIs, or evaluation associations, and aligned initiatives. And you can see here a nice graphic of where we find the different associations. Currently, there are 37. I think this was 2 years ago. And what is interesting is when Mahesh started, there were 6. And within 2 years, it had grown to 13, primarily due also to Mahesh's hard work to get them engaged. But then later on, all of us as presidents tried to interact with the national evaluation associations, and the number grew to 37, some more active than others. But there is definitely a connection between us as a family, an extended family. And for example, there is AfrEA's board member talking at the 25th celebration in Niger of Renzi, which, by the way, is, I think, as old as or older than AfrEA. They really have something to celebrate as a national organization. I think the first that was established with the help of Jean-Charles Rouge and many others. And then the Africa Gender and Development Evaluators Network, AGDEN, was also about 23 years ago. Florence, you can tell us more about that. Also grew out of AfrEA. So those kind of opportunities that we develop as part of a family should hold us together and should keep us as a family together. What is also important as number 3 is we mobilized African and international partnerships and support, of course. And so I just made a list of all the bodies that supported our 3rd conference, the ones that we worked with when we were holding our conference, and also as president during that time, who gave us support. And it's great to see all the international support. But what is even more important is the building of African relationships. And I just highlighted one here that I think also came during the time of Adam when he was president, if I remember well, and Adeline and others were on the board. And that was with the ACBF, the African Capacity Building Foundation. There was an evaluation of the work that AfrEA did. And there was also a memorandum of understanding that was signed. And there was also work, and another interesting one was the working relationship with the Peace Building Alliance to develop peace building capacity with an emphasis on documenting learning and sharing in Francophone Africa. Many of these events were very time constrained. You know, they ran for a year or two, maybe not all the time. It's good to go back to history to see what was done and what one can perhaps take up again when they have stopped after some time. Let's revive some of those again. Number 4, we strengthen capacities. We encouraged and supported international exposure. And this was done in many different ways, and all presidents and boards and the people in AfrEA with the national associations were intended to benefit from such opportunities. So there were many opportunities with bursaries to get people to participate in international conferences that we try to negotiate on our own or with others. There is, apologies, I just skipped. There was then also, of course, workshops that are held together with partners in Africa. And most recently at the NEC conference in Beijing, AfrEA brought together the African delegates to discuss better collaboration initiatives. And this is really important because, as I said, the kind of relationships that we have among one another should grow and flourish because of our connection with one another. There are many, many that I don't have time to mention that I'm sure Serge and Florence will say more about. In the 5th place, as an achievement, is already early on, we aim to inspire Africa-centered evaluation. And that started already in 2002 with Mahesh, who led, I think it was it 13, or the names are there, a large number of national associations who drafted the African evaluation guidelines to establish an African approach to the standards of how we do evaluation, but still very much in tune with international standards. And that was really a big achievement, one of the biggest achievements of AfrEA at that time. And Omul Bartal from Mauritania, also president, I think the 4th president of AfrEA, she led the revision of the guidelines in 2006, 2007, where it was improved and made more African. And then under the leadership of Adeline first and Rossetti, both of whom were presidents, of course, they asked me to lead a group. I think we were 33 people, also representing a large number of national evaluation associations, as well as interested individuals, who then developed the African evaluation principles in a way intended to replace the African evaluation guidelines. And these were collaborative processes, all of them, between AfrEA and the national associations, the VOPs. And it is something that we succeeded in doing, but now the use of it needs to be much better than it was in the past. And very quickly, in the last few minutes, just we all know about Made in Africa evaluation. And I put the faces of the presidents who were responsible in 2007 for initiating Made in Africa evaluation. We called it Making Evaluation Our Own. And there was a special session at that conference. The conference was led by Umul, and Suli Gariba and I initiated the special stream, and Mahesh supported the conference. And that is where the notion of Made in Africa evaluation was born. And I think it was called that only in 2012 with Florence. You can remind us if you named it, Made in Africa evaluation. But it was drafted, there was a significant statement, 2 statements actually drafted that said we must make this our own. And it was a long journey. We had a Bellagio meeting with about 40 or so representatives from Africa, only Africans, at that meeting in Bellagio to see how we can evolve this notion. And from that also grew a strong emphasis on South-to-South evaluation. And that was manifest when 7 ex-presidents or presidents from around the global South, I think I represented AfrEA, and then the rest you can see came from all over the global South. I think they were all there. I had a keynote plenary in Kampala in Uganda to encourage us all to focus on South-South cooperation, apart from simply just in Africa. So all of this is to strengthen the voice from the global South to make sure that not only do we serve our own people well, but that we can contribute to the theories and the practices elsewhere in the world. Then, of course, we all know the African Evaluation Journal, and I want to thank Mark Abrams, whose picture is there, for the sterling work that he did over so many years to make it work. AfrEA was not always a great partner. I know there were some bottlenecks at times, but AfrEA has been instrumental now in supporting and enabling our knowledge to be far more visible than it has been in the past. And of course, we've got a lovely new editor now, and really all the best from our side to make sure that this very important effort continues. I have 20 seconds left, so I'm just going to say we have also helped to shape important international conversations and trends in evaluation. NONI, many of you don't know about that. It was more than 200 organizations, mostly funders, coming together to say that impact evaluation is not just RCTs. They do not serve Africa well if they are held as a gold standard. And we fought that for 3 years through NONI, a network of networks on impact evaluation. Unfortunately, we learned there that power and politics trump what we believe is good. We've been strengthening our focus on the next generation of young evaluators. We have done much there to help build capacities and also expose them to the international arena. And then finally, we have developed an infrastructure, a backbone in support of action processes, our lovely secretariat. We had Reportage as a newsletter. We now have AfrEA Insights as a newsletter, and this all continues to hopefully make AfrEA grow despite the challenges that we face. We have learned a lot, and we are lucky to have this organization, and we have a lot that we can celebrate, while at the same time we make sure that we do this as well as possible. I hand back to you. Rossetti, hand over back to you.
Thank you so much. I believe there are hand claps everywhere. Flowers to you, Zenda. Thank you very much for sharing with us that journey. I know there are many things that you could have said, and maybe because of time, for instance, we have AfrEA has a partnership now with a number of universities managed by the University of Botswana. There is work going on there for developing tools that are Africa-rooted for Made in Africa, funded by the MasterCard Foundation. So we love that. And we also love the fact that we have a partnership with the American Evaluation Association. So thank you so much for that presentation. And now we'll go to our second presenter. The second presenter is Dr. Florence Etta. And Dr. Florence is a World Evaluation Case Competition 2020 judge and is currently the vice co-chair of Eval SDGs, a global network created in 2015 by Eval partners. She is a member of Eval Indigenous, Eval Gender, and the chair of the Africa Gender and Development Evaluators Network, AGIDEN. Florence served as the chair of the UN Women Global Evaluation Advisory Committee during 2017 and 2019, and was the 6th president of the African Evaluation Journal. She's an editor of the African Evaluation Journal, which we just had. She has a PhD from the University of London Institute of Education in Psychology and Learning. She's currently an evaluation entrepreneur working as a CEO and principal consultant in monitoring, evaluation, and learning, registered in Lagos and Nigeria. You are most welcome, Florence, and over to you.
Thank you very much. Carlos, I'm not sure we're supposed to share our own screens or you'll do it for us. Just give me a moment. I wasn't prepared to do this. But you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Great, thank you very much. If you give me a minute, I will try and find the presentation. In the meantime, I'd like to thank Zenda for the awesome overview of what we have been able to do. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, great. So we're looking at the African evaluation screen. Great. Are we in presentation mode, in slide mode? There's a black screen there showing. I'd like to start off by thanking Dr. Miche, our current president, and all the other presidents who are represented here, and all who are probably listening to us now or watching us, this video, for their commitment. As Zenda has said, this journey has been long, 25 years, hasn't always been easy, but we have a lot to celebrate. And today, I was asked precisely to talk about challenges. But before we do the challenges, I'd like to say thank you and welcome to everybody, and to say we are delighted to be here today to tell you about the history of this great association, this wonderful continental association. And like Zenda says, if you don't know it, you don't get caught by the bug. But as soon as you encounter it, it is something that is very difficult to walk away from. You can ask us, all of us who are sitting here. So I thank Dr. Miche for asking us back here to tell you the history. This is very African. To say this is what we did and this is what we found. Thank you very much. I took us here because in talking about the challenges, you have to understand, we have to come from where we intended to go. So I'd just like to say, I put this slide together to show us the 6 objectives that were identified, that are identified in the Constitution, the 2017 Constitution of AfrEA. I don't know how many of us in this audience of the 139 have seen these or remember them or know them. Next slide, please. So what I did with those 6 slides is just translate them into what I call mission objects. What exactly does that mean when we have 6 slides, 6 objectives, so what? What they mean is that we have to work in these 4 specific areas: institution building, We strengthen, we create AfrEA and all of the VOPEs and the international, national, even within subnational relationships to build institutions that support evaluation in Africa. You'd excuse my voice. It's very cold out here. And so early in the morning, my system takes a long time to wake up. No, just go back a bit, please. Thank you. 4 areas of what the mission wanted to do: build institutions, build the field, especially in relation to evaluation in our context. And today we call it Made in Africa Evaluation. Grow and strengthen practitioners, meaning we have the capabilities, the skills to do good evaluation. Okay. The 4th one is to support sustainable development in our spaces, in our continent, through evaluation. Those were the 4 big dreams we had. Those are our mission objects. And Zenda has told us how we have done with all of those. So I'm supposed to tell us what challenges we had with each of these field areas. Next slide, please. So I'll take one of the mission areas at a time. Institution building. What were the challenges that we encountered? The first challenge was just structural. AfrEA wanted to build evaluation on the continent that has 50+ countries, and in each country there are different groups of people. Even in the continent itself, there are francophones, there are anglophones, there are lusophones, there are arabophones, there are all kinds of things. And still today, we value diversity, but the inclusiveness of AfrEA, somebody said to me yesterday, the language is very heavily English. And I think that was probably some of the reasons why AfrEA was born. Yeah. But we don't want to splinter ourselves. Yeah, we can have multiple organizations, but let's come under one fold and make sure that everybody is taken care of, the lusophones and francophones, with equity and inclusion. Governance. We have had some difficulty, a challenge in the past with governance. And what has helped in governance is training and meetings and handholding. And that is why I think the fact that we're here today and the fact that President Miche is giving the Council of Elders such a, what's it called, an incredibly generous space to interact with him and others and the young ones is particularly useful, because as an African, you learn by sitting at the feet of a leader. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to sit down. We've been there before. We know what the challenges were. Operational capacity. I don't know that at any point in time there have been more than 3 full-time staff members of the Secretariat in AfrEA. In fact, there are probably more times that there were less than 2. I remember a time where there was none. There was no Secretariat. Yeah, I remember a time when Zenda was running AfrEA from High Valnet business. Yeah, and the final thing in relation to institution building, you can't do it without funding and resourcing, whether it is material resources or financial resources. And that has been a major problem. Even now, you do sometimes get funding, as we have. Let's be honest, we have been particularly supported, and we're glad about that. The donors have given us lots of money. Most times, the money is given for projects, not core funding. And so that in itself is limiting in relation to what we can do. Zenda mentioned the journal. That is one place that we've had great difficulty in raising funding. Thank you. Next slide, please. The other mission object was building the field in practice. What were our challenges here? For the first, we're 25 years, the first half of that period, most of the trainers that would come for the conferences, because the conferences are popular because they give most of what happens there is training. 3/4 of the trainers would be Northern or European or American or Australians or New Zealanders. And so what would they teach us is what they know, is what they had developed. So in a sense, that influence was what basically, in a sense, we're walking around with. And I think that was what happened in 2007. We woke up and said, this is not going to go on anymore. The other problem was a dependency syndrome, which we recognize today as colonialism. Sometimes we don't recognize it, but sometimes commissioners of evaluation are looking not to Africans to do the job or to do the evaluations, but to others. Yeah, and even African projects and programs look to others, because they think they have probably better skills and better competencies. And the other one was African evaluation scholarship was about evaluation itself, was nascent, was not very strong. Thank you very much. And the last point I'd like to raise here is derision, disbelief, and lack of support. What do I mean? I was at a conference somewhere in Europe, Southern Europe, and somebody said to me, in the early days of Made in Africa evaluation, a very senior scholar, evaluation scholar, a Northern evaluation scholar said to me, tell me, Florence, what's all this about Made in Africa evaluation? In a very condescending tone. And I looked at him and I'm like, well, that's exactly what it is. Made in Africa evaluation. And if you want to know what it is, just hold on. You will get to know pretty soon. So the idea that we had the temerity and the audacity to think that we can create something like a Made in Africa, a subject matter that would grab the world in a field like evaluation, for which, it's as if there's this notion that we as Africans or other kinds of underdeveloped, what they call them, least developed countries, do not have a history of evaluation or assessing, was preposterous. So that's why I said that was a bit of a challenge. And the fact, to be quite honest, is not just Northerners who thought this, or Europeans or Americans. Some Africans themselves, some of our own brothers and sisters thought, what are we talking about? But I mean, like they say, first they laugh at you, then they wonder what you're doing, then they respect you. We are almost in that space where respect is being given to this notion. And I congratulate all those who started it, you, Zenda, and Solime, may his soul rest in peace, and Omu and all of us. Next slide, please. Thank you. And if I'm speaking too fast, especially for the Francophones, please let me know. The third challenge I talked about is the grow and strengthen practitioners. This is, we can call this for short, capacity development and capacity strengthening, or capacity building. I don't like to call it that. But the fact that individual capacity for evaluation far outstrips the supply that we have currently. And that is a major challenge. We have a conference one every 2 years. And how many can we possibly train? 600, maximum 800 on a continent that has how many hundreds of millions of people? A supply is not enough. And so AfrEA has to think about how to upscale that. And training is usually offered at conferences. And that's what I've said. The greater problem is the weak demand from African governments. I must congratulate Uganda because I think it's one of the few countries on the continent that has now government officials that have the label of either evaluators or male staff. Most other governments, the one I'm very familiar with, the Nigerian government and the Kenyan government, they call them economic officers, and they're supposed to do evaluation of other government agencies, MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies. So the real thing is that they don't value evaluation. Next slide, please. This last slide is talking about support for sustainable development through evaluation. And what this means is that the AfrEA and us are supporting our governments and our continent to develop in a sustainable and equitable way. How have we done in this? This, for me, is the greatest challenge that AfrEA has. It's the greatest challenge because if you don't have government support, then you cannot grow. And one country, 2 or 3 countries on the continent that have shown that very eminently are South Africa and Uganda, and to a lesser extent, just coming up, Tanzania. Samia is the most solid, the model of Samia is the model I would hope and wish for most VOPEs, because VOPEs would not survive otherwise. And the greatest, what do you call it, user of evaluation services is government. And if government does not see that it needs it, then there's a problem. And how will it see if we don't show? So the challenge is that we have weak support from government. And sometimes governments are suspicious or hostile with us because they see VOPEs, especially evaluating VOPEs and other CSOs, are doing the bidding of their masters, their colonial masters, as if we are spies, as if we want to do evaluations so that they can cut off funding and stuff like that. And so there's weak demand and there's poor recognition and value by governments of evaluation and evaluators. So this is a great challenge. Next slide, please. I was asked to not leave us feeling so bad in relation to the challenges. How have we managed them, or how can we manage them? The greatest challenge is AfrEA's surest hope for sustainability. Let our governments, African governments, African philanthropists, rich Africans, let us show them and make them believe in the value of evaluation, commit to it. At the minimum, AfrEA should get endorsement by the African Union so that African governments can take the leaf from South Africa to show how to support VOPEs and genuine and sustainable equitable development in our countries. Thank you very much.
Wow, that was really wonderful. I would clap for on behalf of all the others because we are not going to open the microphones. But thank you so much for sharing such an in-depth expose of what has happened. And I know that our last speaker is going to continue from there. In the meantime, we have received questions in the chat and in the question and answer section. So I ask also the speakers to keep an eye there because we won't have a lot of time to collect all of them, but at least get the answers. So thank you so much, Florence, and we appreciate what you have shared with us. Now, our last speaker is Dr. Sage Eric. Is the co-chair of Eval Indigenous, vice president of Ideas, co-chair of the coordination committee of Eval Partners. He's also a former president of the AfrEA, founder of the Cameroonian Center for Evaluation and Development, a member of AfrEA Evidence Network. He has over 20 years of experience in research and evaluation with universities, government entities, community-based organizations, donor agencies such as African Development Bank, Islamic Development Bank, USAID, World Bank, EU, and UN. So you can imagine the caliber of people we have today. He has visited 98 countries, and I almost wanted to do the fraction of the global world. It must be a huge fraction. And he's a specialist in many areas. He has worked at various universities in the United Arab Emirates and the University of Ottawa. He has written books, co-authored 6 books and over 180 reports and articles. Thank you so much. And Sage, over to you. If you save me some minutes, I will be grateful. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sisters, for accepting, this key role as moderators. I know the way you're speaking, and then, it sounds directly into our mind. Je veux dire bonjour en français pour mes frères et sœurs qui parlent la langue française. Et je veux m'excuser auprès d'eux parce que beaucoup attendaient que je parle en français. Mais je vais présenter plutôt
in French, but I'm going to go into English rather. I hope AfrEA has taken enrichment. I'd like to thank President Michel and the team, Carlos, for interpretation enrichment.
Because I don't know why, but I just apologize to my French speakers peers, online. But anyway, friends, it's not easy to be the last speaking after what you have 2 eminent, wonderful, and grateful sisters, Zenda and Florence. These are the worldwide leaders. When they talk, sometimes I would just keep my mind quiet. But they also accept that actually can share some, let's say, summary of challenge and lesson. I will start by saying, as Zenda said, my journey in these evaluations, how to acknowledge 2 people, and I'm not sure they're online, Umu Kariba and Dibazu Yantio. These are the 2 key people, who brought me into AfrEA journey. The journey started, that was in Senegal, 2008. And then they told me you have to join and support. And then particularly Umu and Dibazu, they were there as my initial mentors. I want to acknowledge, their support to bring me in. And then 2 years back after Accra, where I met for the first time my sister Florence and Zenda, and I was appointed as a Central Africa representative to the board. And then I was asking myself what I'm going to do as a new, chairperson, connecting Central African country to AfrEA. And a year later, I get, the heavy mandate as a president, incoming president over my sister, Nermin, who was not able to continue for family concern. So this is how, maybe briefly, how my journey started. And then I was keep in flying and then supporting somehow, living family and other personal commitment, behind, but giving AfrEA the priority into my journey. So this kind of roughly summarize, of my journey in this. And then for my colleagues, AfrEA remains my priority as a global evaluations of VOPES or continental VOPES. It means unless I'm in the hospital, I will always there to support AfrEA, on my last bonds as Africans. So let me just get back on some kind of summary of challenge. As we have limited time ahead, we may get time to continue discussion by email or by chat on LinkedIn or Facebook. So I'll just bring in here, yes, indeed. As you can see, listen from Zenda and Florence, it wasn't easy for AfrEA from the beginning to strengthen its capacity, especially institutional capacity. That was the key. It took us about 12 years to get an office. And then I think I was so fortunate to be the president who opened the first office of AfrEA in Accra. That was the key challenge, to how to have a capacity as institutions, to have a kind of presence in the African continent where everyone can know that, okay, if you want to see AfrEA, go to Accra. So that was 2013, about 13 to 14 years after AfrEA creation. So that was very not easy, another challenge. And the challenge remained how to maintain this institutional, let's say, advantage to make sure that, forever, we have a very strong presence, in our continent, especially in Accra. And Zenda talk about the journal. And then this, it deal with knowledge management. The struggle, lasts for many years. And then hopefully when we get Mark Abrams, the guy accept, we're able to launch, the first journal in Yaoundé. And then this was very key challenge, because as continental organizations, how do we provide, a kind of big, I may say, big pictures of way we can gather all our achievement on the continent. So it wasn't easy. And then the new challenge, the same challenge continue how to maintain this journal, for forever. I'm happy that Zenda, you mentioned it. We have a new executive we have a new editors, replacing. I'm also supporting Mark Abraham. So these are another challenge. How can we push forward the knowledge management, to support our key evaluation achievement on the continent? That challenge, very important. It has been a long while a challenge for AfrEA, the membership. As you know, you mentioned it, we are about 20 or 30 VOPEs now. And then individual membership has always been the most key part of AfrEA, but it was not easy, and it's still not easy to maintain the membership of AfrEA, even though we extend to have some institutional membership on board. The reflection should continue with the actual leadership on the way our membership should reflect and be easy for everyone. I saw someone ask a question on the chat, how to become a member of AfrEA, how to join AfrEA. So this challenge remains key backbone for AfrEA leadership to facilitate and ease connections and said membership for everyone want to join AfrEA, especially Africans. So that could be something to take on as in considerations for the way. Then challenge financial, to skip this one because it's a bit of our challenge, but just to say that and confirm, we have very much good people in Africa ready to support AfrEA. What they need is just good proposal and connect them. I already mentioned Dangote Foundation. I mentioned some of it to the AfrEA board during the last meeting we got. So many donors in Africa continent with a big backbone to support AfrEA in terms of funding. So let's just go to them and see. It's a key challenge. And then with this, we could be able to solve the challenges. Hopefully with the upcoming event celebrating AfrEA Presidents 25 years in Addis Ababa, could be an opportunity for the leadership to bring in and invite those foundations somehow, share the commitment, the need for them to support our continental VOPEs. Another challenge of importance is related to our geography and diversity. AfrEA is unique, and Africa is unique in the world. This is where our challenge comes from, because we are really diverse from the west to the east, from the north to the south, passing by the center. We have a strong geographic and cultural diversity. We don't use our work, but also give us a uniqueness as AfrEA, as a continental VOPEs. And in the meantime, we jump on how to respond to robust and cultural responsive evaluation practice in the continent, especially by African evaluators. My sister talked about, be the beginning, early presence of many non-African be the one doing evaluation in the continent. But of course, there are some reasons behind, mostly attached to number of international program and projects. But time is coming now where African and wake up to say, we have to do evaluation. We have to seek for African evaluators to lead many evaluation in the continent. And then this is another mandate for AfrEA leadership, to see the way to link with the VOPEs, link with the countries, and then especially the big players on how to really promote Africans evaluator on number of evaluations. So I want to skip on those key challenges, but bring take us to kind of a lesson. if we exist against, and if you see people attracting the world to AfrEA, there are many reasons, many lessons behind.
Making specific requests.
This is only, I will start with our dream, an engagement to continue support AfrEA journey. And this, very importantly, I think my sister mentioned about it, we have to take it as a strain, you know, because we believe about it. Whatever various turbulence and crisis, remember, my sister didn't talk about it. Just to be short, we got a number of turbulence of our journey from the post-Niamey conference, Accra, Yaoundé, Kampala, Abidjan. But today we can be so proud and happy to see that, you know, we are still keeping moving, and then we have a new leadership with a new vision on board. AfrEA is focused on the VOP and individual evaluation priority, capacity building initiative, and conference teams. I think my sister Zenda already mentions, you know, the list of conference. We see the diversity of teams. We see how it was linked to both let's say external and local connections teams on priority. This is where AfrEA make a difference, you know, as a continental organizations. Yes, indeed, we make a difference by promoting cultural evaluation guidelines, providing African bridge for evaluators to connect to networks, to share experience on the continent. Someone asked a question on the chat about how, you know, how do the existing evaluation AfrEA guidelines are being used? I say yes, somehow, but the real answer might be get by the leadership to learn, for example, a survey to get more clear evidence about how those guidelines are being used. But immediate answer will say that indeed there are many international organizations, including African organizations, now connected to the Made in Africa, connecting to the guideline and use them. I was happy to see that, for example, Conservation International, a US-based organization with indigenous evaluation in the continents, are using those guidelines. So I have many examples to confirm that those guidelines are being used, but we need a survey to confirm with clear evidence. With the time again, short time we have, let me just share with you my last slide on the lesson. I don't know what happened. Oh, maybe something happened on my, I don't know what happened with this technology, but yeah, it came back. So another lesson we have to keep is like, we focus our journey and the journey and not, we focus on the journey and not on the destination. What does it mean? It means we stand whatever, any turbulence arrive over times. It means that our intentions remain on what we have to do as an African on the AfrEA. So it means like we don't focus on the destination to say, we want to look at AA, we want to look like ES, we want to look like other continental, we want to look on as our own view. We have to focus on our own view as a continental VOP. This is very important. We focus on the development of Africans' value, as I said, significant value we have on both. You know, I talk about the Ubuntu philosophy, the Made in Africa, the self-determinations, oral cultural value to continue to develop evaluation capacity on the continent. And then today, we are always focused on how do we decolonize the practice. This where the added value of those African development, approaches is supporting the decolonization value. Another one to say that yes, indeed, we're talking about evaluation being promoted by the Western part in the past, but there are many philanthropic evaluations happening in the continent. The challenge is that they are not published. They exist. So let's just make a difference between the two to acknowledge that those approaches are being used. And finally, one of the key lessons we have to keep is that AfrEA will continue to focus on the context, its culture, history, and belief. This is where we will remain as a unique, the more attractive, and the more accepted continental VOPs in the world. So thank you on this. I want to stop here. I think we can continue with many questions and give opportunity to people to speak. President Ozetti, these are my 2 cents, and then I hand over to you so that we can continue with people question and answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sage, and thank you for the presentation, the ideas, the lessons, taking us forward. Thank you so much. We appreciate. So members, This is the time for question and answer. Because we are so many, at some point we are 140. And it's impossible to open up and ask questions in the last few minutes. But what we promise is that we have captured all the questions in the chat room. And if something is not answered, first of all, we'll apologize, but we are going to try to answer them and send to you who have registered. So what I would like to do, I've asked our presenters to keep an eye on the chat room, and I'll give them a round to go around and give some responses. But I could see that a lot of the issues were around the role of donors and what have they been doing, particularly, for instance, World Bank and the others in the development of evaluation in Africa. That's a question that comes in many of the issues. There are questions from Agiden around best practices that can be replicated. I'm sure throughout the presentation, we had some of the good things Africa has done. And we also have issues around people who are just interested. Some are at the beginning of their careers. They are asking if they join AfrEA, will it be useful for them to advance their career? Of course, that embodies the issue of VOPEs. Do members know enough about VOPEs and such that it's not about AfrEA, but joining your home? So maybe you want to answer to this. And one of the last ones was a question around if AfrEA, why are governments not engaging? That was the question, not engaging with AfrEA. Don't we have enough brand strength? And then, of course, I gave Serge the liberty to read the French questions and give a summary response. So I will first come back to Zenda, who has been resting, and give you like 3 or so minutes to say something. And then Florence will follow. So over to you, Zenda, to some of those questions.
Quite a number. Thank you very much, Rossetti. A number of the questions relate to information. How can I join AfrEA? Where can I get the African evaluation principles and so on? And it just reminds me that we need to perhaps have a website with more substantive information. Maybe Secretariat can look into that. What would be really useful? Practical information that may be missing from the website. I'm not saying it's not there, but perhaps just to make sure that it's easy to access and identifiable. So I think that's one place to go to. There have also been other questions around where can one, we responded to that, but where can one find resources on gender equity, more general questions. So I also just want to alert everybody that there is an immense number of resources on the internet and often concentrated in National Evaluation Association websites in Africa and elsewhere, or on specialized websites like gender-oriented websites, or there's, for example, artificial intelligence networks, and so on. So I really advise those of you who are new to evaluation, number one, to see AfrEA conferences and events as places to connect, but also to explore the vast amount of knowledge that is available. Also, Better Evaluation is a website that serves a global evaluation community. So we can benefit in Africa from all those resources while also focusing on both developing and using our own ones. And for those who haven't done it yet, if you have, we all have access to something like Chat GPT. If you ask it to point you to resources and you force it to point to African resources or Cameroonian resources or so, it will bring you to very useful resources. Do not trust it completely, but it can be very useful in your search as well. Back to you, Rossetti.
Thank you very much. I saw, before Florence, you come on, I saw at least one hand of Bahati Alex Tumusime. And if we can enable him to just quickly air his issue so that you take it on as well, Florence, as you speak. Bahati, are you ready? Bahati, Alex? He's muted, so maybe he will come on at the time of Sage. So Florence, please go ahead.
Thank you very much for the questions. There's this particular one that I did indicated I'd like to answer, and the question says, it's from Heli Bayene. Why AfrEA failed to get buy-ins and support from African governments? Is it due to unawareness of evaluation, evidence benefits, or fear of evaluation accountability? Does this vary by the level of democracy, accountability of the countries as well? Thank you for that question, a very useful one. I think it is to answer this question, we have to probably go to it's almost like the beginnings of AfrEA itself. If we take the American Evaluation Association and the Canadian Evaluation Society, they were started as activities by governments. The government started this notion. They had a project or projects, and they wanted to see how the projects were working. And so from the very get-go, these were government instigated. Until now, the American government and the Canadian governments are strong actors. In fact, if you go to the Canadian Evaluation Society conference, many of the participants are from government departments. So that is how those ones came about in the contemporary history of both the American Evaluation Association and the CES. On the other hand, AfrEA was started, its history is linked to the multilateral development partners. So Mahesh was sitting in UNICEF, and up till today, we still have many UN organizations supporting AfrEA. But you must understand that because we have this historic relationship with donors, we call them donors in some kind of a way, it is also possible that, and you must understand what you have said is true. Sometimes governments, do they want to know the truth? And I think that South Africa, I said South Africa had or has the most extensive monitoring infrastructure for government activities. That's, and I may be wrong, but coming as an outsider, that's what I see. So it's very interesting that that monitoring infrastructure has led to the support. And of course, their equity issues made it absolutely necessary for government to make sure that whatever it spent money on was working for the target audiences or target people. So in a sense, it's all a combination of this. And I see Zenda wants to chip into this answer. It's sometimes also if money is what's the word, slippage of money from government activities, would you really want an evaluation that tells you that 3/4 of money has not gone to the project? It's a difficult one to do, but I think that as we get more conscious of monies that government is using on our behalf, I don't know how many of you remember the great fall of there was a situation in Kenya where the dams broke and a number of villages and people died downstream. And that dam was absolutely a government developed dam, and it was supposed to be one of the best, and it just collapsed and people died. So let me give it to Zenda. I don't know if I've answered your question well, but there are many factors that lead to this. But I think if we continue to hammer the fact that evaluation is key to development, then we get governments on our side. There's no way we can do this on our own without government support. Thank you. Over to you, Zenda. Thank you, Madam.
And then we go to Sage.
Thank you very much, Madam Rossetti.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just indicated that I'll respond to the question that Michelle is not here anymore to respond to it. It's important. How does AfrEA plan to position itself to address emerging trends and challenges in evaluation, such as the increasing focus on equity, climate change, and digital transformation? I just want to point out that these are issues that have received a lot of attention around the world. So there's already in the evaluation space globally a lot of attention to these issues that we can look at, that we can learn from, and we do contribute to those through the knowledge that we create, the meetings we participate in, and so on. But for AfrEA, it's really important in a webinar series like this. I think they intend to, and also in other spaces that AfrEA will and can create to address these issues from an African perspective, because that helps us to make sure we have a uniquely African perspective on issues like these global trends. And we must make sure that the global South and African perspectives are very loud in that space. It's very important that we realize that the world, because it's being destroyed by linear, reductionist, short-term thinking, the global South societies, cultures have often and always actually had a systemic view of the world, a relational view of the world, and a longer term view of the world. And therefore, the expertise that we can now bring to the table is crucial for the planet as well as for the continent. And we should take on the responsibility to contribute as well as we can, because the world needs it at this moment, and Africa in particular. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that explanation. I'll now go to Sage in a few minutes. You have been reading the French side to respond, and after you, I'll give chance to Ian, Hopwood, and Bahati, at least to say something, and then we'll wind up. So Sage, over to you.
Thank you, President Rossetti. Indeed, I cannot shift to the French without say like 30 seconds on what my sister just mentioned now about funding. Yes, indeed, let's just make acknowledge that each continental VOPES have a different way of operating. We will stop comparing AfrEA to CS or AEA, because as Florence said, CS strong advantage by the government with a strong commitment. And then about 50 or 60% of participants to CS conference are for governments that are being paid for travel, for accommodation, for everything, which is different for AfrEA. Same thing for AAA is kind of business association where people, organization and people commit to go to. Let's just stop making it different. And then finally, just to say that, yes, indeed, AfrEA was mostly oriented at the beginning on, let's say, donor UN visions. And it was good because the direct outcome was that many international organizations might have more African evaluators able to support evaluation of their program and project in the continent, and then indirectly, African governments and other African institutions benefit by having strong African evaluators. A direct advantage today is that you can see that most of the international organizations now are insisting to have either African firm for many evaluation program or having individual African in the evaluation. The last example was last week, I got a call to say, Eric, we want an African firm to support our 2-year mandate. We don't want anyone from South Africa. That's what some kind of stumps I want to raise, which is very important. And now we have the opportunity to shape, the direction with the new leadership, and then we could do that. Now, coming back to the question, indeed, there were many questions. Then I will speak in French, President Rossetti, because the question in French, why? To respect our friends who talk in, who mention their question in French. Donc, je vais parler en français maintenant par rapport
I'm going to
à
shift
cela.
into
Oui, Indy, je vais d'abord remercier
French. First, I would
Madame
like to thank
Margoud du Bénin,
Madame
qui a
Nawoubung
posé une
from
question
Benin, who asked a question on
la plus grande réalisation
the
de ma
greatest
période comme président.
achievement of
Je pense que
my
j'ai déjà dit
term
en
as
anglais.
a president. I answered that in English. I had the opportunity. I'd like to thank my colleague, and I hope my colleague Jennifer is not here, from South Africa. Jennifer, I had Jennifer. Gado Burema is not here. We work tirelessly to get the funding and have the first office of AfrEA in Accra. That was 2013 with the Gate Foundation support. This is something which is very instrumental for me. If I have to come back as a president, if I could do something differently, I can say that the interest should be on the connection between African evaluators so that all the projects and programs on the African can have a level of collaboration, because there, the African Union and other institutions, West or Central Africa, we're talking about African integration. AfrEA can play this instrumental role supporting African integration from West Africa. People can move to East Africa, can also engage in evaluation program. Northern Africa, Tunisia, Algeria can come down to Cameroon for evaluation or go to South Africa and vice versa. This will be something crucial that AfrEA should be spearheading. I'll be there to support that, so that this dream becomes a reality. To cut it short, because I have only 1 minute, Madam President, yes, to assess the assessment of the participation and the contribution of our guides. I responded in English. We need a study to have data. This data can help us to say clearly that what was the impact of our methodological guides and African approaches that I've been using for a long time, the impact they've brought on the continent. So, well, this is what I can say. The other questions were addressed. Membership, Caleb has provided the information, and there was another question in French on Issoufza. It's been answered as well. The guide, the link was shared with you. There's no other question in French. Maybe I missed that, but we can get back to you later. I'll cut it short. Thank you. Back to you, Rossetti.
Thank you very much, Sage, for making us know the French side of issues. Alex Bahati, in 1 minute, can you ask or make a comment? And if Alex Bahati is muted, is not ready, Ian Hopwood, can you make your comment? Ian.
Can you open my microphone? Hello?
Yes,
can you hear me?
Hear you. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, congratulations. Great session, wonderful memories. I only have a few seconds. Let me say one thing. I'm speaking from Senegal, from the Senegal Evaluation Association. Perhaps to carry forward the message of evaluation across the continent, we might think in terms of the affiliation with the African Union, maybe establishing a day of African evaluation. I work in children's issues. Every year, the 16th of June, we meet and we have meetings across the continent for the African child, the Day of the African Child. In a couple of weeks' time, here in Senegal, I think elsewhere too, there's a day of the think tanks. Now, we all know there are too many days and it gets a bit confusing, but it is at least an occasion where you can go back to government and you can put something on the table and you can get the minister to make a speech, or it is a way of giving a sense of solidarity between countries. We can have a common theme. We can maybe have connections between neighboring countries on that day. It doesn't mean to say that evaluation is only for 1 day, but it just gives a little bit of a push to communication and to advocacy. So that's one thing maybe we should think about of this 25th anniversary, and working more closely with other African institutions, such as the Capacity Building Foundation, such as the African Development Bank, and certainly the African Union, makes a lot of sense, and congratulations for the great work so far. So here is my small suggestion. And just to add, we've done a lot of work in Senegal on evaluation of child and youth-centered programs. And given the demography of the continent, this is extremely important. And also it's an area where we can be a leader in some ways, even at a global level, and some of the techniques and methods of working with children and young people so that their participation is really effective in planning and in evaluation. We have some training packages we're working on here with CLEAR in Francophone Africa, and I'm sure there are similar initiatives in Anglophone Africa too. So those are two things: emphasis on children and young people in various ways, and youth as a way of regenerating. And the other one is Day of Evaluation, African Day of Evaluation, or Day of African Evaluation. And it will push Made in Africa as well. So thank you, everybody. Wonderful session. I hope everyone will pay up for the new year now, pay your cotisation organizationally and individually. All the very best.
Thank you very much. And ending on that note where you say people should pay their dues to their VOPEs because we are going to roll out a marvelous program as we celebrate 25 years of service. I called for Alex, but Alex is no longer there. You had your chance, but you're not there. So my dear speakers, we have to end at this point because the time is over. But what you see on the screen, please scan that QR code. That's the evaluation. We want to hear from you because this was just the inaugural webinar, and we are going to call you for many more as we go forward to celebrate the years. Is that Alex? No, Alex, your time is up. So as we wind down, first of all, I want to thank the participants, everybody who has given their time to be with us, because if you are not here, whom would we have been speaking to? So you are our stars for today. We want to thank the AfrEA board members. I saw them. They're here. Ponga was here. I saw Etta, and many others. But I also saw the leaders who served on the boards of AfrEA for those 25 years. They are here. So that shows you that this institution is strong. We love it. And we are around to make sure that we move forward. I also thank colleagues, partners. I've seen World Bank, I've seen MasterCard, and I've seen players, Jeremy from the American Evaluation Association, and many others who have come to support us. Agden, thank you so much. We are so grateful. And whatever is in the chat, be sure we are going to address and send you a write-up of these issues, because time is not enough to address them comprehensively. We have to think. We are evaluators. We must be evidence-based, not just answering off cuff. So we shall respond to them. And some of them are very unique. And it's what we need to move beyond the 25. I saw something about evaluation advocacy being raised to the highest level. I saw things to do with engaging the African Union and many others. Thank you so much for this. And unfortunately, our time is up. I would have loved to give more hands chance, but we have to end. And I want to end at this point. And thank you so much. Let's continue engaging. I saw someone asking that, can you give us the addresses of the speakers? If you feel that you want to do so, put your email, dear facilitator, in the general chat, and people can continue networking with you. So thank you so much. I hope, Secretariat, you took a picture. I don't know whether you took a picture of this webinar, because the microphones, the videos are not open for others. Can you confirm if you took some pictures?
We can take pictures for all the audience, but we're able to get we can get a good picture of at least the speakers, if that's okay.
Okay, so if you, anyone who can, please open your videos and we take this. We thank President Mitch for making this possible. Like my fellow speaker said, We are past presidents. We are here to nudge others into the future, make sure institutional memory continues to grow. So thank you so much, President Mitch and the board, for giving us a chance. And my speakers, thank you so much for the eloquency, the time management, and we can only wish you Happy New Year and see you next time. So as far as we are concerned, we are done. Thank you so much. Maybe you can leave music for members to enjoy. Secretariat, thank you so much, Caleb, and all of you, Carlos. We congratulate you, Carlos, for being the Executive Director of AfrEA. So thank you so much, Secretariat, and we adjourn this webinar. I remain Rosette Nabuma Naenga in Uganda, a past president of AfrEA. Thank you so much.